Yeah, I'll just start. So I think yesterday it ended at the 10 differences between psychoanalysis and logotherapy. So now we have to start from fight for yourself. Existential frustration arises when our life is without purpose, or when that purpose is skewed. In Frankel's view, however, there is no need to see this frustration as an anomaly or a symptom of neurosis. Instead, it can be a positive thing, a catalyst for change. Logotherapy does not see this frustration as mental illness, the way other forms of therapy do, but rather as spiritual
The
anguish.
page number. Sorry for disturbing. Can you tell me the page number?
Page number 31 of the PDF.
31. In PDF, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Logotherapy does not see this frustration as mental illness, the way other forms of therapy do, but rather as spiritual anguish, a natural and beneficial phenomenon that drives those who suffer from it, to seek a cure, whether on their own or with the help of others, and in so doing to find greater satisfaction in life. It helps them change their own destiny. Logotherapy enters the picture if the person needs help doing this, if he needs guidance in discovering his life's purpose and later in overcoming conflicts so he can keep moving towards his objective. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl cites one of Nietzsche, Nietzsche's famous aphorisms. He who has a why to live for can bear with almost anyhow. Based on his own experience, Frankel believed that our health depends on that natural tension that comes from comparing what we've accomplished so far with what we'd like to achieve in the future. What we need, then, is not a peaceful existence, but a challenge we can strive to meet by applying all the skills at our disposal. Existential crisis, on the other hand, is typical of modern societies in which people do what they are told to do or what others do rather than what they want to do. They often try to fill the gap between what is expected of them and what they want for themselves with economic power or physical pleasure, or by numbing their senses. It can even lead to suicide. Sunday neurosis, for example, is what happens when, without the obligations and commitments of the work week, the individual realizes how empty he is inside. He has to find solution. Above all, he has to find his purpose, his reason for getting out of bed, his ikigai. I feel empty inside. In a study conducted at the Vienna Polyclinic Hospital, Frankel's team found that 55% of the patients they interviewed were experiencing some degree of existential crisis. Sorry. According to logotherapy, discovering one's purpose is in life helps an individual fill that existential void. Frankel, a man who faced his problems and turned his objectives into actions, could look back on his life in peace as he grew old. He did not have to envy those still enjoying their youth because he had amassed a broad set of experiences that showed he had lived for something. Better living through logotherapy. A few key ideas. We don't create the meaning of our lives, as Sartre claimed. We discover it. We each have a unique reason for being, which can be adjusted or transformed many times over the years. Just as worry often brings out precisely the thing that was feared, excessive attention to a desire or hyperintention can keep the desire from being fulfilled. Humor can help break negative cycles and reduce anxiety. We all have the capacity to do noble or terrible things. The side of the equation we end up depends on our decisions, not on the condition in which we find ourselves. In the pages that follow, we will look at four cases from Frankel's own practice in order to better understand the search for meaning and purpose. Case study: Viktor Frankl. In German concentration camps, as in those that would later be built in Japan and Korea, psychiatrists confirm that the prisoners with the greatest chance of survival, were those who had things they wanted to accomplish outside the camp. Those who felt a strong need to get out of there alive. This was true of Frankel, who, after being released and successfully developing the school of logotherapy, realized he had been the first patient of his own practice. Frankel had a goal to achieve, and it made him persevere. He arrived at Auschwitz carrying a manuscript that contained all the theories and research he had compiled over the course of his career, ready for publication. When it was confiscated, he felt compelled to write it all over again, and that need drove him and gave his life meaning amid the constant horror and doubt of the concentration camp. So much so that over the years, and especially when he fell ill with typhus, he would jot down fragments and keywords from the lost work of any scrap of paper he found. Case study: The American Diplomat. An important North American diplomat went to Frankel to pick up where he left off with the course of treatment he had started 5 years earlier in the United States. When Frankel asked him why he'd started therapy in the first place, the diplomat answered that he hated his job and his country's international policies, which he had which he had to follow and enforce. His American psychoanalyst, whom he'd been seeing for years, insisted he make peace with his father so that his government and his job, both representations of the parental figure, would seem less disagreeable. Frankel, however, showed him in just a few sessions that his frustration was due to the fact that he wanted to pursue a different career, and that diplomat concluded his treatment with that idea in his mind. 5 years later, the former diplomat informed Frankel that he had been working during that time in a different profession and that he was happy. In Frankel's view, that the man not only didn't need all those years of psychoanalysis, he also couldn't even really be considered a patient in need of therapy. He was simply someone in search of a new life's purpose. As soon as he found it, his life took on a deeper meaning. Case study: The Suicidal Mother. The mother of a boy who had died at age 11 was admitted into Frankel's clinic after she tried to kill herself and her other son. It was this other son, paralyzed since birth, who kept her from carrying out her plan. He did believe his life had a purpose, and if his mother killed them both, it would keep him from achieving his goals. The woman shared her story in a group session. To help her, Frankel asked another woman to imagine a hypothetical situation in which she lay on her deathbed, old and wealthy but childless. The woman insisted that in that case she would have felt her life had been a failure. When the suicidal mother was asked to perform the same exercise, imagining herself on her deathbed, she looked back and realized that she had done everything in her power for her children, for both of them. She had given her paralyzed son a good life, and he had turned into a kind, reasonably happy person. To this, she added, crying, "As for myself, I can look back peacefully on my life. For I can say my life was full of meaning, and I have tried hard to live it fully. I have done my best. I have done my best for my son. My life was no failure." In this way, by imagining herself on her deathbed and looking back, the suicidal mother found the meaning that, though she was not aware of it, her life already had. Case study: The Grief Stricken Doctor. An elderly doctor, unable to overcome the deep depression into which he'd fallen after the death of his wife 2 years earlier, went to Frankel for help. Instead of giving him advice or analyzing his condition, Frankel asked him what would have happened if he had been the one who died first. The doctor, horrified, answered that it would have been terrible for his poor wife and that she would have suffered tremendously. To which Frankel responded, "You see, doctor, you spared her all that suffering, but the price you have to pay for that is to survive and mourn her." The doctor didn't say another word. He left Frankel's office in peace after taking the therapist's hand in his own. He was able to tolerate the pain in place of his beloved life. His life had been given a purpose. Morita therapy. In the same decade that logotherapy came into being, a few years earlier, in fact, Shoma Morita created his own purpose-centered therapy. In Japan, it proved to be effective in the treatment of neurosis, obsessive compulsive disorder, and post-traumatic stress. In addition to being a psychotherapist, Shoma Morita, was a Zen Buddhist, and his therapy left a lasting spiritual mark on Japan. Many Western forms of therapy focus on controlling or modifying the patient's emotions. In the West, we tend to believe that what we think influences how we feel, which in turn influences how we act. In contrast, Mareta's therapy focuses on teaching patients to accept their emotions without trying to control them, since their feelings will change as a result of their actions. In addition to accepting the patient's emotions, Marita therapy seeks to create new emotions on the basis of actions. According to Marita, these emotions are learned through experience and repetition. Marita therapy is not meant to eliminate symptoms. Instead, it teaches us to accept our desires, anxieties, fears, and worries and let them go. As Marita writes in his book, Marita Therapy and the True Nature of Anxiety Based Disorders, in feelings, it is best to be wealthy and generous. Marita explains the idea of letting go of negative feelings with the following fable. A donkey that is tied to a post by a rope will keep walking around the post in attempt to free itself, only to become more immobilized and attached to the post. The same thing applies to people with obsessive thinking who become more trapped in their own suffering when they try to escape from their fears and discomfort. Sorry. The basic principles of Moretta therapy. Accept your feelings. If we have obsessive thoughts, we should not try to control them or get rid of them. If we do, they become more intense. Regarding human emotions, the Zen master would say, if we try to get rid of one wave with another, we end up with an infinite sea. We don't create our feelings, they simply come to us and we have to accept them. The trick is welcoming them. Morita likened emotions to the emotions to the weather. We can't predict or control them. We can only observe them. To this point, he often quoted the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who would say, hello, solitude. How are you today? Come sit with me and I will care for you. Do what you should be doing. We shouldn't focus on eliminating symptoms because recovery will come on its own. We should focus instead on the present moment and if we are suffering, on accepting that suffering. Above all, we should avoid intellectualizing the situation. The therapist's mission is to develop the patient's character so he or she can face any situation. And character is grounded in the things we do. Monitor therapy does not offer its patients explanations, but rather allows them to learn from their actions and activities. It doesn't tell you how to meditate or how to keep a diary the way Western therapies do. It is up to the patient to make discoveries through experience. Discover your life's purpose. We can't control our emotions, but we can take charge of our actions every day. This is what we should have a clear sense of our this is why we should have a clear sense of our purpose and always keep Marata's mantra in mind. What do we need to be doing right now? What action should we be taking? The key to achieving this is having dared to look inside yourself to find your Ikigai. The four phases of Marata therapy. Marata's original treatment, which lasts 15 to 21 days, consists of the following stages: isolation and rest, 5 to 7 days. During the first week of treatment, the patient rests in a room without any external stimuli. No television, books, family, friends, or speaking. All the patient has is his thoughts. He lies down for most of the day and is visited regularly by the therapist who tries to avoid interacting with him as much as possible. The therapist simply advises the patient to continue observing the rise and fall of his emotions as he lies there. When the patient gets bored and wants to start doing things again, he's ready to move on to the next stage of therapy. Light occupational therapy, 5 to 7 days. In this stage, the patient performs repetitive tasks in silence. One of these is keeping a diary about his thoughts and feelings. The patient goes outside after a week of being shut in, takes walks in nature, and does breathing exercises. He also starts doing simple activities such as gardening, drawing, or painting. During the stage, the patient is still not allowed to talk to anyone except the therapist. Occupational therapy, 5 to 7 days. In this stage, the patient performs tasks that require physical movement. Dr. Moreta liked to take his patients to the mountains to chop wood. In addition to physical tasks, the patient is also immersed in other activities such as writing, painting, or making ceramics. The patient can speak with others at this stage, but only about the tasks at hand. The return to social life and the real world. The patient leaves the hospital and is reintroduced to social life, but maintains the practices of meditation and occupational therapy developed during treatment. The idea is to re enter society as a new person with a sense of purpose and without being controlled by social or emotional pressures. Naikan meditation. Moreta was a great Zen master of Naikan introspective meditation. Much of his therapy draws on his knowledge and mastery of the school, which centers on the three questions the individual must ask him or herself. What have I received from person X? What have I given to person X? What problems have I caused person X? Through these reflections, we stop identifying others as the cause of our problems and deepen our own sense of responsibility. As Maratha said, if you are angry and want to fight, think about it for 3 days before coming to blows. After 3 days, the intense desire to fight will pass on its own. And now, Ikigai. Logotherapy and Mareta therapy are both grounded in a personal, unique experience that you can access without therapists or spiritual retreats. The mission of finding your Ikigai, your existential fuel, once you find it, it is only a matter of having the courage and making the effort to stay on the right path. In the following chapters, we'll take a look at the basic tools you'll need to get moving along that path. Finding flow in the task you've chosen to do, eating in a balanced and mindful way, doing low intensity exercise, and learning not to give in when difficulties arise. In order to do this, you have to accept that the world, like the people who live in it, is imperfect, but that it is still full of opportunities for growth and achievement. Are you ready to throw yourself into your passion as if it were the most important thing in the world? Number 4. Find flow in everything you do. How to turn work and free time into spaces for growth. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Aristotle. Going with the flow. Imagine you are skiing down one of your favorite slopes. Powdery snow flies up on both sides of you like white sand. Conditions are perfect. You are entirely focused on skiing as well as you can. You know exactly how to move at each movement. There's no future, no past. There's only the present. Sorry. You feel the snow, your skis, your body, and your consciousness united as a single entity. You are completely immersed in the experience, not thinking about or distracted by anyone else. Your ego dissolves and you become part of what you are doing. This is the kind of experience Bruce Lee described with his famous Be Water, my friend. We've all felt our sense of time vanish when we lose ourselves in an activity we enjoy. We start cooking, and before we know it, several hours have passed. We spend an afternoon with a book and forget about the world going by until we notice the sunset and realize we haven't eaten dinner. We go surfing and don't realize how many hours we have spent in the water until the next day when our muscles ache. The opposite can also happen. When we have to complete a task we don't want to do, every minute feels like a lifetime, and we can't stop looking at our watch. As the quip attributed to Einstein goes, put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour, and it seems like a minute. That is relativity. The funny thing is that someone else might really enjoy the same task, but we want to finish it as quickly as possible. What makes us enjoy doing something so much that we forget about when whatever worries we might have while we do it? When are we happiest? These questions can help discover our ikigai. The power of flow. These questions are also at the heart of psychologist Mihail Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research into the experience of being completely immersed in what we are doing. Csikszentmihalyi called the state flow and described it as the pleasure, delight, and creativity and process when we are completely immersed in life. There's no magic recipe for finding happiness, for living according to Ikigai. But one key ingredient is the ability to reach this state of flow and through this state to have an optimal experience. In order to achieve this optimal experience, we have to focus on increasing the time we spend on activities that bring us to the state of flow, rather than allowing ourselves to get caught up in activities that offer immediate pleasure, like eating too much, abusing drugs or alcohol, or stuffing ourselves with chocolate in front of the TV. As Csikszentmihalyi asserts in his book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. Flow is the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it even at a great cost, for the sheer sake of doing it. It is not only creative professionals who require the high doses of concentration that promote flow. Most athletes, chess players, and engineers also spend much of their time on activities that bring them to the state. According to Sis Santamali's research, a chess player feels the same way upon entering a state of flow as a mathematician working on a formula or a surgeon performing an operation. A professor of psychology, Sis Xantamali, analyzed data from people around the world and discovered that flow is the same among individuals of all ages and cultures. In New York and in Okinawa, we all reach a state of flow in the same way. But what happens to our mind when we are in that state? So sorry. When we flow, we are focused on a concrete task without any distractions. Our mind is in order. The opposite occurs when we are trying to do something while our mind is on other things. If you often find yourself losing focus while working on something you consider important, there are several strategies you can employ to increase your chances of achieving flow. The seven conditions of achieving flow. According to research, Owen Oh, sorry, the words are a bit cut out, so I'll just be skipping to the list. So knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, knowing how well you are doing, knowing where to go where navigation is involved, perceiving significant challenges and perceiving significant skills, being free from distractions. Strategy 1. Choose a difficult task, but not too difficult. Schaefer's model encourages us to take on tasks that we have a chance of completing but that are slightly outside our comfort zone. Every task, sport, or job has a set of rules, and we need a set of skills to follow them. If the rules for completing a task or achieving a purpose are too basic relative to our skill set, we will likely get bored. Activities that are too easy lead to apathy. If, on the other hand, we assign ourselves a task that is too difficult, we won't have the skills to complete it and we will almost certainly give up and feel frustrated to boot. The ideal is to find a middle path, something aligned with our abilities, but just a bit of a stretch so we experience it as a challenge. This is what Ernest Hemingway meant when he said, "Sometimes I write better than I can." We want to see challenges through to the end because we enjoy the feeling of pushing ourselves. Bertrand Russell expressed a similar idea when he said, to be able to concentrate for a considerable amount of time is essential to difficult achievement. If you're a graphic designer, learn a new software program for your next project. If you're a programmer, use a new programming language. If you're a dancer, try to incorporate into your next routine a movement that has seemed impossible for years. Add a little something extra, something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Even doing something as simple as reading means following certain rules, having certain abilities and knowledge. If we set out to read a book on quantum mechanics for specialists in physics without being specialists in physics ourselves, we'll probably give up after a few minutes. On the other end of the spectrum, if we already know everything a book has to tell us, we'll get bored right away. However, if the book is appropriate to our knowledge and abilities and builds on what we already know, we'll immerse ourselves in our reading and time will flow. This pleasure and satisfaction are evidence that we are in tune with our ikigai. Easy will lead to boredom, challenging flow beyond our abilities will lead to anxiety. Strategy 2. Have a clear, concrete objective. Video games played in moderation, board games, and sports are great ways to achieve flow because the objective tends to be very clear. Beat your rival or your own record while following a set of explicitly defined rules. Unfortunately, the objective isn't quite clear in most situations. According to a study by Boston Consulting Group, when asked about their bosses, the number one complaint of employees at multinational corporations is that they don't communicate the team's mission clearly, and that as a result, the employees don't know what their objectives are. What often happens, especially in big companies, is that the executives get lost in the details of obsessive planning, creating strategies to hide the fact that they don't have a clear objective. It is like heading out to sea with a map but no destination. It is much more important to have a compass pointing to a concrete objective than to have a map. Joy Ito, director of the MIT Media Lab, encourages us to use the principle of compass over maps.
Drishti, take a minute and ask listeners, Taranjit, Devamma, and okay, it's only Taranjit and Devamma. Would you please tell what you understood and what you liked about this till now? Who's going to speak, please? Thank you, Devamma.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to say being imperfection, it is not end of our success life. It makes more opportunities and it takes us to our successful life. And Bruce Lee, they said that be a water, my friend. Like water is safeless and tasteless and something colorless. It is going to adjust. It's safe as per if you put the water in a vessel, it becomes a vessel safe. Like that, we should adjust to our life, and yeah, and we should face some challenges, and we should push ourselves to uh, become a very successful person.
Good,
That's it.
Devamma. Thank you. And Taranjit, would you like to go?
Good evening, everyone. The Morita therapy that is told about in the Ikigai, it's very simple, but it is the way, it should become the way of life. Like acceptance of yourself, what you are you do what you are doing, When you accept yourself, it becomes easier to heal. If you are hurt somewhere and you don't know how to go about it, the Morita therapy, as it is told, that you can do it on your own. You don't require any spiritual guru or any special resort or any therapist to help you out. So that Morita therapy, I really liked it very much. And the thing that about last paragraph, what she has read, she has read about the flow, that is very true. If something that is very easy, we lose interest, we don't have interest in that. And if something is very difficult, then also we lose interest, and then we get we have lot of stress that we couldn't do it. So the flow should always be there. It should not be quite too challenging, or it should not be too easy.
Thank you so much.
Great, great, great. Yeah, thank you, Drishti. You can continue.
Yeah. Okay. It is much more important to have a compass pointing to a concrete objective than to have a map. Joy Eater, a director of the MIT Media Lab, encourages us to use the principle of compass over maps as a tool to navigate our world of uncertainty. In the book Whiplash: How to Survive Our Faster Future, he and Jeff Howe write, in an increasingly unpredictable world, moving ever more quickly, a detailed map may lead you deep into the woods at an unnecessarily high cost. A good compass, though, will always take you where you need to go. It doesn't mean that you should start your journey without any idea where you're going. What it does mean is that understanding that while the path of your goal may not be straight, you'll finish faster and more efficiently than you would have if you had trudged along a pre-planned route. In business, the creative professionals, and education alike, it is more important to reflect on what we hope to achieve before starting to work, study, or make something. We should ask ourselves questions such as: what is my objective for today's session in the studio? How many words am I going to write today for the article coming out next month? What is my team's mission? How fast will I set the metronome tomorrow in order to play the sonata at an allegro tempo by the end of the week? Having a clear objective is important in achieving flow, but we also have to know how to leave it behind when we get down to business. Once the journey has begun, we should keep this objective in mind without obsessing over it. When Olympic athletes compete for a gold medal, they can't stop to think how pretty the medal is. They have to be present in the moment. They have to flow. If they lose focus for a second, thinking how proud they'll be to show the medal to their parents, they'll almost certainly commit an error at a critical moment and will not win the competition. One common example of this is writer's block. Imagine a writer has to finish a novel in 3 months. The objective is clear. The problem is that the writer can't stop obsessing over it. Every day she wakes up thinking, I have to write that novel, and every day she sets about reading the newspaper and cleaning the house. Every day she feels frustrated, and promises she'll get to work the next day. Days, weeks, and months pass, and the writer still hasn't gotten anything down on the page, when all it would have taken was to sit down and get that first word out, then the second, to flow with the project, expressing her ikigai. As soon as you take the first small steps, your anxiety will disappear and you will achieve a pleasant flow in the activity you're doing. Getting back to Albert Einstein, a happy man is too satisfied with the present to dwell on the future. A vague objective, confusion, time and energy wasted on meaningless tasks. Clearly defined objective and focus on project, flow. Obsessive desire to achieve a goal while ignoring process, fixation on the objective rather than getting down to business. Strategy 3: concentrate on a single task. This is perhaps one of the greatest obstacles we face today. With so much technology and so many distractions, we're listening to a video on YouTube while writing an email when suddenly a chat prompt pops up and we answer it. Then our smartphone vibrates in our pocket. Just as soon as we respond to that message, we're back on our computer logging onto Facebook. Pretty soon, 30 minutes have passed and we've forgotten what that email we were writing was supposed to be about. This also happens sometimes when we put on a movie with dinner and don't realize how delicious the salmon was until we're taking the last bite. We often think that combining tasks will save us time, but scientific evidence shows that it has the opposite effect. Even those who claim to be good at multitasking are not very productive. In fact, they are some of the least productive people. Our brains can take in millions of bits of information, but can only actually process a few dozen per second. When we say we're multitasking, what we're really doing is switching back and forth between the tasks very quickly. Unfortunately, we're not computers adapt to parallel processing. We end up spending all our energy alternating between tasks instead of focusing on doing one of them well. Concentrating on one thing at a time may be the single most important factor in achieving flow. According to Malai, in order to focus on a task, we need to be in a distraction free environment to have control over what we are doing at every moment. Technology is great if we are in control of it. It is not so great if it takes control of us. For example, if you have to write a research paper, you might sit down at your computer and use Google to look up the information you need. However, if you're not very disciplined, you might end up surfing the web instead of writing that paper. In that case, Google and the internet will have taken over, pulling you out of your state of flow. It has been scientifically shown that if we continually ask our brain to switch back and forth between tasks, we waste time, make more mistakes, and remember less of what we've done. Several studies conducted at Stanford University by Clifford Ivernas describe our generation as suffering from an epidemic of multitasking. One such study analyzed the behavior of hundreds of students, dividing them into groups based on the number of things they tended to do at once. The students who were the most addicted to multitasking typically alternated among more than four tasks. For example, taking notes while reading a textbook, listening to a podcast, answering messages on their smartphone, and sometimes checking their Twitter timeline. Each group of students was shown a screen with several red and several blue arrows. The objective was the exercise was to count the red arrows. At first, all the students answered correctly right away, without much trouble. As the number of blue arrows increased, the number of red arrows stayed the same, only the positions changed. However, the students accustomed to multitasking had serious trouble counting the red arrows in the time allotted, or as quickly as the students who did not habitually multitask. For one very simple reason, they got distracted by the blue arrows. Their brains were trained to pay attention to every stimulus, regardless of its importance, while the brains of the other students were trained to focus on a single task, in this case, counting the red arrows and ignoring the blue ones. Other studies indicate that working on several things at once lowers our productivity at least by 60% and our IQ by more than 10 points. One study, funded by the Swedish Council for Working Life and Social Research, found that a sample group of more than 4,000 young adults between the ages of 20 and 24 who were addicted to their smartphones got less sleep, felt less connected to their community at school, and were more likely to show signs of depression. Concentrating on a single task makes achieving flow more likely, increases productivity, increases our power of retention, makes it less likely to make mistakes, help us feel calm and in control of the task at hand, causes us to become more considerate as we pay full attention to those around us, increases creativity. Whereas multitasking makes achieving flow impossible, decreases productivity by 60%, though it doesn't seem to, makes it harder to remember things, makes us more likely to make mistakes, makes us feel stressed by the sensation that we're losing control, that our tasks are controlling us, causes us to hurt those around us through our addiction to stimuli, always checking our phones, always on social media, reduces creativity. What can we do to avoid falling victim to this flow impeding epidemic? How can we train our brains to focus on a single task? Here are a few ideas for creating a space and time free of distractions to increase our chances of reaching our state of flow and thereby getting in touch with our ikigai. Sorry. Don't look at any kind of screen for the first hour you're awake and the last hour before you go to sleep. Turn off your phone before you achieve flow. There is nothing more important than the task you have chosen to do during this time. If it seems too extreme, enable the do not disturb function so only the people closest to you can contact you in case of emergency. Designate one day of the week, perhaps a Saturday or a Sunday, a day of technological fasting, making exceptions only for e readers without Wi Fi or MP3 players. Go to a cafe that doesn't have Wi Fi. Read and respond to email only once or twice per day. Define those times clearly and stick to them. Try the Pomodoro technique. Get yourself a kitchen timer. Some are made to look like a Pomodoro or tomato. And commit to working on a single task as long as it's running. The Pomodoro technique recommends 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest for each cycle. But you can also do 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes of rest. Find the pace that is best for you. The most important thing is to be disciplined in completing each cycle. Start your work session with a ritual you enjoy and end it with a reward. Train your mind to return to the present when you find yourself getting distracted. Practice mindfulness or other forms of meditation. Go for a walk or a swim, well, whatever will help you get centered again. Work in a space where you will not be distracted. If you can't do this at home, go to a library or cafe, or if the task involves playing the saxophone or music studio. If you find that your surroundings continue to distract you, keep looking until you find the right place. Divide each activity into groups of related tasks and assign each group its own place and time. For example, if you're writing a magazine article, you could do research and take notes at home in the morning, write in the library in the afternoon, and edit on the couch at night. Bundle routine tasks such as sending out invoices, making phone calls, and so on, and do them all at once. Advantages of flow: a focused mind, living in the present, we are free from worry, the hours fly by, we feel in control, we prepare thoroughly, we know what we should be doing at any given moment. Our mind is clear and overcomes all obstacles to the flow of thought. It's pleasant. Our ego fades. We are not the ones controlling the activity or task we're doing. The task is leading us. And disadvantages of distraction: a wandering mind, thinking about the past and the future, concerns about our daily life and the people around us invade our thoughts. Every minute seems endless. We lose control and fail to complete the task at hand, or other tasks or people keep us from our work. We act without being prepared. We frequently get stuck and don't know how to proceed. We are plagued by doubts, concerns, and low self esteem. It's boring and exhausting, constant self criticism. Our ego is present and we feel frustrated. Flow in Japan, sorry. Takumis, engineers, geniuses, and otakus. What do taku?
Uh,
Yeah,
Drishti, if you are still starting something new, stop it. It's already 10 to 10.
yeah.
So you can have a discussion and then we can close the meeting.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, for what I've read till now, till the disadvantages of distraction, does anyone have any thoughts they want to share?
Yes, ma'am. Mm,
Yeah.
Concentrating on a single task. For example, I'm doing a mini project now in my fifth sem, uh, uh, which I I have chosen topic, I should be completely focused on that. I should create abstracts, and I should submit synopsis to my teacher, and I should do some coding works towards it. Uh, if I am doing many works at the same time, I can't able to focus on my mini project. So that I should complete one work uh, within a given time. I with completely focused on it. Um, they were telling about some advantages and disadvantages of distraction and flow. Uh, in distraction, when we got distracted, every minute seems to be endless. Like to spend a 1 minute, it feels like 1 hour, like that. So that we should not get distracted from anything, to focusing on our work is very important. That's what I have learned from this.
Thank you so much. Uh, Um, um, does you have anything to say?
Hello. Like in the last book where you have read why, in the same way, here it is written the objective. We have to be very focused on our objective, because it is always said it is better to know the direction rather than the destination. If you know your direction, which way you are going, definitely you will reach your destination. If you
Yeah.
don't know the direction, you will be lost somewhere. And this is a study which is like I don't know, but in the scientific in a science journal, it was published a few years back, that if you are doing multitasking, you lose your the IQ, as well as the productivity reduces. This is a very good example the writer has given over here, that if I'm doing 10 tasks, I cannot complete all the 10 first thing. Second thing, I will be distracted what where I am in which task, and definitely I lose track. But if I'm doing only one task and I do that well, that would be the results would be good. I could read a very good example of the books, that red and blue arrows. It happens when we are like when we are reading, and then a message pops up, I switch my attention over there, or something like that. So it is really very difficult. So it's always good that you stick to one task, concentrate on that task, complete that task in the best possible manner. This on not only when we speak of meditation is also concentration on your own self, so that your thoughts don't get go here and they don't go haywire. And even if they go haywire, you have to bring them back to your own self. This is what the author means to say,
Yeah.
but this is what I have understood.
Hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And
Thank you so
Drishti,
much.
what did you understand? What did you like about it? Since you're just reading it, I want to hear from your point of view.
Yeah. I think for me, the one thing that at least stuck out to me the most is flow. Because as someone who has like multiple tasks and deadlines due, and we have very little time to even complete them, I usually do a lot of things at one time, like try to multitask, maybe write an essay while also, submitting or writing an email to a teacher for something else. So I realize I do get distracted quite frequently, and I procrastinate a lot because of that. Like it, I just stop working and instead I just focus on what I have to complete rather than completing the work itself. So maybe like getting into the state of flow is something that's like really stuck out to me because it is a habit I think I need to start developing for myself as well. Simply because it just helps in me being more productive and getting the most optimal results for whatever work you're doing.
Good, good. I mean, here I would say the first thing when I heard about multitasking, I was thinking that's what I'm doing right now. I'm listening and I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
But that's one disadvantage of passive listening. And that's
Mm.
why we're trying to make it active listening by stopping in between and asking everybody. And
Yeah.
one thing I also understood is that usually I don't multitask because I'm horrible at it. If I put three dishes on the stove, one
Uh-huh.
will guarantee get burnt. Uh, I'm I have too many things on my mind going on at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So yes, I realize that my strength lies in just doing one thing at a time.
Yeah. Because you think you're being productive, and in reality, you're really not being productive.
And the problem is women are supposed to be multitaskers,
Yeah.
and they're given a lot of strength saying that, oh, you're such a great multitasker. Oh, women are such great multitaskers, not realizing that all individuals are not made same.
Yeah.
And what will happen if you're not a multitasker like
Mm.
me? I just feel that, oh, I'm not as good,
Yeah.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you say to that, Taranjit?
Yes, I completely agree to you that many a time three on the three stoves, three things are there, and sometimes it goes a mess. Like I have to put sugar in the tea, and I'll put it in the egg, and the salt goes to the tea. And it is very true that productivity goes down however good multitasker you are. And as you correctly said, that women are expected to multitask. Here the child is crying, the husband has to go to the work, you have to work in the kitchen, you have your own work. Everything doing is really, they think that we are Durga, we have to do everything.
No,
So
they think we have that many hands.
yeah, that is what that they think, that we have to do everything and we have to be perfect in everything that
Yeah.
we do. There should be nothing less than perfection is expected of us. Everything should go like. I remember now. Now, that my children are not there. When they were there, Mama, do this, Mama, do that. Arey, like I'm in the kitchen. I have to go to work. I have to get dressed up, and I have to do your work also. Like it was really a mess. So now I think so. Yes, it is. After that study which I read, it is really. Now I always recently I have given my MECA exams, and many a times what you said I also used to do this. That reading is going on, reading class is going on, and I am studying Viktor Frankl book only. I have done a research on that, life's meaning for life. So on I'm reading that book also, and I'm looking into the Google also, and then taking help from AI also. So everything is going on, and nothing is coming out. So it is really very difficult to like I think so multitasking shouldn't be done. You should concentrate on one work, do that very well, understand in depth, and that is it. And many a times we only feel overwhelmed. Arey, wow, that person knows everything. She's good at everything, but I am good only at one thing. But that I don't think so. That is a right thing. Like after reading this, don't feel that it seems that they are good at so many things, but it is not. That is not the fact.
What do you think, Devamma? We are speaking because we are all women. We are all speaking from a woman's point of view. What do you think, Devamma?
Actually, ma'am, I have faced it like this in my studies. At the same time, my teachers were asking about to submit to assignments and all. At that time, I got messed up, ma'am. What to do? Which subject is I use? Uh, I need to write first and submit like that. I have faced it like that, ma'am.
So, all of us have faced the problems of working multitasking.
Yes, true.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good. So, we've agreed so much on that. I think we can close the meeting. Thank you so much, Drishti. I hope you get better soon.
Thank you. So sorry.
No. I was just going to offer that. Do you want me to read? But then I realized that if you need me, you know that I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Hmm.
you so much, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Have a lovely weekend. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
See
Good
you.
night. Have a lovely weekend.